Hi everybody, how's it going? This is Edan of LightCycleAstrology.com. Welcome back to the channel, friends. Today we're doing Mantic Monday episode number 12. Being that it's Monday, hope you guys had a great weekend. And we're already getting into the second week of November. So today we'll be talking about the astrology coming up for the week ahead here. But I can't believe it. It feels like time is really flying towards Christmas time now. I am a huge fan of Christmas and the holidays, but it feels like time is, almost going faster than I would like. I have to begin thinking about presents and all sorts of Christmassy stuff coming up real soon here. I'm still getting over that cold that I had last week, so I'm a bit froggy and I'll probably be coughing a little bit today. So excuse the frogginess and the coughs. Today, I want to take a look at the astrology for the week ahead using only the traditional 7 planets. I was inspired to do this because there is actually a lot of outer planet transits being made by inner planets this week. And, one thing that my great teacher always encouraged us students learning traditional astrology was, hey, the traditional astrologers didn't have access to modern planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So could astrology, was ancient astrology still as effective as modern astrology is today? And of course, the answer is yes. You can still read the archetypal themes that are provided for the moment or in a birth chart using only the traditional 7 planets very well. But it takes a bit of practice because we're used to, in the modern times, using the modern planets as well. But how do we get the same archetypal themes or messages coming through just using the traditional 7 planets? Can we get those same messages or themes coming through in the week? For instance, this week, most astrologers are going to concentrate on the Venus trine Pluto aspect that begins on Monday. And towards the end of the week, the big one is going to be Mars making an opposition to Uranus. That is always an exciting thing to look at when you have Mars and Uranus combinations. Of course, we get the disruptive, almost violent, chaotic upheaval that tends to come with that kind of combination of planets coming together. And so it's a big one. And, astrologers taking a look at that dynamic are going to really key into some very specific archetypal things coming through the week. But I'm personally glad that I chose to look at the traditional 7 planets and what they were doing, because it sort of gave me the lens to see that there are some really specific and intricate things happening with the inner planets that I may have missed had I just been focused on the bigger transits being made to outer planets. So today we're going to take a look at the astrology of the week ahead through the traditional 7 planets and come up with archetypal themes to watch for. The big theme that I'm seeing right now is, when looking at just the traditional 7 planets, is a theme I'm calling trust, commitment, and deepening bonds of love. So we'll get into why that is here in a moment. Before we do, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave me some comments in the comment section. And you can always go to my website, lightcycleastrology.com, if you feel like you want some more personal astrological guidance. That is where I offer my readings. You can take a look at the schedule and pricing. It's affordable, and usually you can get penciled in to see me within 2 weeks or so. The holidays are coming up again, so these make great gifts for other people as well. We can take a look at anything that is coming up for you in your life, big changes, or any area of life that you would like to sort of investigate and get a perspective from an astrologer practicing traditional Western ancient astrology. So lightcycleastrology.com if you have any interest in that. Okay, let's go ahead now and we'll begin the week here. We'll pull up the real-time clock, and I want to take you back to November the 3rd, last Friday, when we have Saturn at 0 degrees and 30 minutes in Pisces, stationing to turn direct. So over the end of last week and into last weekend, we had Saturn basically stopped in the sky, and as we pull into Monday here, we get Saturn's first forward movement. So a big story of the week is definitely that Saturn is changing directions. Now, Saturn being such a slow moving planet doesn't make that many aspects himself to other planets. He really can only make aspects to Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, planets that are slower than him. So mostly what happens with Saturn during the course of a year is that inner planets are making aspects to Saturn. So he gets to participate that way, but it's pretty rare that Saturn will make aspects to these outer planets. Of course, we had the Saturn-Uranian squares that happened in 2021, which was really special. And one of the reasons why that was so special is because, again, during the course of any given year, Saturn doesn't really make that many aspects to planets slower than him. But one thing that is really important that Saturn does during the course of a year is his changes in direction, changes into retrograde motion or changes back into direct motion out of retrograde. Those are big important moments for Saturn in a year. And this week is featuring one of those, one of two times that Saturn will change directions in a year. So that's an important signature of the week that begins the week here. Now, also a really important signature, as I was saying, most astrologers, they're going to be noticing, oh, there's Venus making a trine to Pluto at the beginning of the week. So, of course, we're going to get themes like love and intensity or passion or some kind of desire that is obsessive or something along those lines. Maybe some good fortune coming through, seen in the symbolism of Pluto providing the resources of powerful institutions or of the earth or something like that. So you do get really important archetypal themes and messages coming from looking at the outer planets here at the beginning of the week. And of course, like I was talking about, most astrologers this week are going to be noticing this big opposition made from Mars in Scorpio over to Uranus by week's end here. So let's just take this forward, and we get the opposition perfecting at the tail end of the week here on Sunday. But as I was saying, that is really important to notice, of course, but let's just go back to Monday now, and let's take out the outer planets and just look at the chart and see what kind of archetypal messages are coming through for us, just as if we were ancient astrologers back in ancient times. What would they have seen? What would they have noticed? And what was striking to me is once I removed the outer planets, it became really striking how some very similar themes were in play this week, but there was a different nuance or angle to the themes. For instance, what is really part of the overall picture for the week here is Venus moves out of Virgo into Libra, picking up dignity, but moving across a very important threshold in the zodiac, right? She moves across the autumnal equinox point, a place that, while is one of her natural temples, is also a place that we say begins the dark half of the year. So Venus metaphorically moves into the underworld. So how could we see similar themes like Venus making a trine to Pluto? Well, quite simply, Venus moving into her domicile, but this isn't her bright and sunny Tauranian domicile, right? This is the dark, underworldly Plutonian domicile. She has good dignity, so there you might get the trine and you might get similar themes that way. Now, another big feature of the week, though, is that we also are going to get Mercury ingressing into Sagittarius and then immediately making a square to Saturn. And this is happening on Friday. So definitely this, by traditional standards, this would have been the main thing that you might have noticed in ancient astrology. The really only prominent aspect, because you don't have Uranus and Taurus anymore, it's going to be, wow, there's a Mercury square Saturn this week as a couple of planets move into signs. Now, one thing that is also happening, though, is that the moon is coming through Libra and on into Scorpio. So you do get the picture of the moon going through her deep death throes in the waning portion of her lunation cycle in dark signs, right? You get the moon again in Libra, the dark, entering the dark half of the year, and then on into Scorpio, the place where she was said to be fallen or depressed. So we get a little bit of that dark, underworldly femininity that is bringing us towards something new, but isn't there yet and has to go through the dark, underworldly, regenerative kind of an intensity that the moon goes through. Now, of course, we experience the moon going through that process once a month, but experiencing it in these signs, in signs that are growing darkness very, very heavily at this time of year. This is the darkest quadrant of the year, really, right? We're heading more towards the darkest night of the year and things like that. So having the moon go through her death or dark phase while traveling through these dark parts of the zodiac, you definitely get that darker essence that is coming through. And Mercury moving into Sagittarius has quite a specific theme to it. Now, for one, Mercury in Sagittarius, this is a place for Mercury that is opposite to one of Mercury's natural temples of Gemini, right? So when you think about Mercury in Sagittarius, it's almost like somebody finishing up their book report at a football game. It's like they're in the bleachers and everybody else is engaged and enthralled in the sports, and here is Mercury. I don't know, maybe Mercury is the announcer and so he fits in there quite well, but Mercury likes to dissect and analyze, and Mercury is really talented at looking at all of the little details and coming up with a kind of like a picture of the small and detailed dissected types of things. Whereas Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius, is a planet that likes to get that 20,000 foot broad view. He just wants to get the broad strokes. Just give me the broad overarching philosophy. Don't read me everything. It's too much detail. I just want the big picture so I can sort of expand on that view, right? So Mercury can sometimes miss the big picture here in Sagittarius. It's that quintessential missing the forest for the trees kind of theme with Mercury in Sagittarius. So again, it's not bad. It's just a tension that Mercury is working with right now, where sometimes he's going to miss those the broader strokes and perhaps feel like he's in an environment where everybody's only looking at the broad strokes, and it's like there's still the need to have the rational detail of the finer things, but it's as if he's in a place where nobody is interested in that. Everybody wants to be spontaneous and have visceral experiences that are adventurous and stuff like that. And he's like, but wait a minute, we still need to finish the book report, damn it. Something like that. But what's interesting, though, is Mercury moving immediately into the square with Saturn is what we're going to take a look at. So today, what I want to do is just read something that I wrote. And I'm going to post this on the website in the blog forum. So you can go to Light Cycle Astrology if you want to get a transcript of this. But this is just a few paragraphs that I wrote, and given, keeping in the I guess sort of in line with the theme of Mercury moving into Sagittarius and maybe having a little bit of a challenge articulating something. I thought, I don't know if I could say this off the cuff better than I wrote this, and I don't know how well I wrote this to begin with. So I'm going to just read this to you. And again, if you want a transcript of this, you can go to lightcycleastrology.com. I'll post it there. So today I wanted to read something for you about Venus and Saturn, because one thing that we may have missed, would have been really easy to sort of skip over, is that we have Venus entering the sign of Libra on Wednesday here. And of course, Saturn is stationing to turn direct. And then if we go forward, again, we have Mercury making that square to Saturn. So we have Mercury in a Jupiter-ruled sign. Think about this for a second, making a square to Saturn in a Jupiter-ruled sign. So we have two planets in an aspect, but they're both in Jupiter's sign. So it's like almost like Jupiter against Jupiter in a way, which is kind of interesting. But take a look at this. We have Venus moving into Libra. And if you look at the bounds that Venus is traveling through once she gets into the sign of Libra, she immediately moves into Saturn's bounds. Now, Saturn over here stationed and once again moving forward by this point is going to be traveling a third time through the bounds of Venus in Pisces. So we have mutual reception between Venus and Saturn, but not by domicile. They're actually in an aversion within domicile rulership, but you have mutual reception through exaltation rulership, where each is in the other's bound terms. So both Venus and Saturn are sort of bound to each other right now. Now, this is really interesting for me because Saturn, again, one of Saturn's big moves of the year is that he is going to either change into retrograde motion or change out of retrograde motion into direct motion. And so those two reversals of motion are striking. Saturn has already been through Venus's bound terms in Pisces before his retrograde one time. During the retrograde, he traversed back over that same territory in Venus's bound terms. And now, once again, he's basically restarted himself at the beginning of Pisces and will cover those same Venusian bound terms all over again for the third time. So Saturn really had a lot of work to do in the terms of Venus. And Venus now entering the exaltation of Saturn's temple, her own temple, though, as well, and within the bound terms of Saturn. There is quite a Venus-Saturn story to tell here, especially that we're getting the waning, dying moon coming through Venus's temple of Libra, moving into Scorpio, and then we have the only traditional aspect of the week being made from Mercury to Saturn. So we're definitely looking at Saturnian kind of themes that are bringing in Venus, that are bringing in Mercury and Jupiter a little bit here. So I want to read for you guys something that I wrote because I don't know if I could articulate this any better. So it's just a couple of paragraphs here. So this is what I'm going to read for you guys now. And if you want a transcript of this, I'm going to post this to my blog forum on lightcycleastrology.com. So if you want to read this for yourself or get a transcript of this, it's just a few paragraphs. This week, Saturn comes out of retrograde, which Saturn has been in since June 17. Saturn's change into direct motion gives some of the most important Saturn symbolism the planet offers in the course of a year, as Saturn rarely applies its own aspects to other planets. Rather, it is usually other planets making aspects to Saturn. In other words, the other players pass the ball a lot to Saturn, but it is rare that Saturn passes the ball to anyone else. This is one of the reasons why the Saturn-Uranian squares of 2021 were so impactful, because Saturn made a lot of plays that year compared to most years. In any given year, usually Saturn's only moves are his stations and changes in direction. So we talked about that already. On March 12th, 2023, Saturn entered the shadow of his retrograde, territory controlled by Venus's Egyptian confines. It's rather like being in the country of Jupiter, being in a Jupiter-ruled sign there in Pisces, but at the Venus embassy within the country. Saturn now being in the same place he was last March as he changes into direct motion marks the planet's third passage through this Venusian territory. Venus will oblige Saturn to do something or may limit Saturn's ability to do certain things here. During Venus's long stay in Leo over the summer, however, Venus was indifferent to Saturn, being in a sign adverse to Pisces. As such, Saturn trying to work something out at the embassy Venus during his retrograde didn't come with much support from Venus herself. And Venus going through her own retrograde meant she had her own problems to deal with. Luckily, Jupiter remained diplomatically loyal in a whole sign sextile to Saturn from Taurus. But the point here is that Venus herself has been on quite a journey, having gone through a long Leo retrograde, a recovery, followed by a trek through fallen territory in Virgo, which hasn't been easy or great for Saturn. This third pass for Saturn through Venus's bound terms will be much improved as Venus picks up dignity moving into Libra. And although she is once again in a sign adverse to Pisces by domicile rulership, Venus and Saturn now share mutual reception by exaltation rulership, giving them a way to support each other. What's more, the omen, as Saturn turns direct all the way back at the beginning of Pisces, is a good one, as Saturn not only receives support from Venus now in good condition through mutual reception, but also because as Venus enters Libra, she moves directly into the bounds of Saturn herself, where she will be in for the next week. So Venus in the bounds of Saturn is only happening through this week, and then she moves out of those bounds. This will obligate Venus to do something for Saturn, or may limit Venus's ability to do certain things here. This also means they hold each other on what might be really important, fated, or kind of an idealized perspective of what the other represents. The most obvious way to describe this could be that we are bound by beautiful things or our desires, and also desire is bound by practicality, austerity, frugality, rejection, or what we choose to believe or not to believe. Again, Saturn in a Jupiter-ruled sign here after all. Let's give an example. You really want badly to have something, but realize it is impractical to want it. On the other hand, you can't let go of the desire to have it. Or let's say you don't believe that your relationship is ready for marriage at this time, but then your partner proposes, and because you don't want to lose them, you accept. Or let's say you hold this high ideal of what you want your life to be, but because you don't totally believe in yourself, you reject that it is possible, though you still hold yourself to it, maybe even try to force others to help you get it, like say a partner or sister. Excluding outer planets this week and interpreting the sky the way our ancient ancestors would have, we see only one aspect between traditional planets forming, and that is Mercury moving into Sagittarius and forming an immediate square to Saturn. Now we have a week that gives us one of the biggest Saturn moves of the year, Saturn's return into direct motion, Venus entering Libra, and an aspect to Saturn by Mercury that Saturn receives from a planet in another Jupiter-ruled sign. This seems to point to a heavy dose of Venus, Saturn, Jupiter archetypal themes: belief, love, and duty; desire, rejection, and salvation; trust, commitment, and deepening bonds of love. So that is what I have for today for the archetypal themes to watch for. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Please drop in the comments any insights or reflections you have of this. I would love to hear what you guys got out of this. And I hope you guys have a great week. We'll be back again next Monday for another Mantic Monday episode. Until then, take care, and I hope to see you soon. Bye for now.